Hello, you beautiful souls. Thank you so much for being with me today. You know, hopefully by now we've all begun to realize that we're not from here, that we all originate outside of this body and this planet. We are pure energy beings from the stars. I know many of you have been waiting for this video, and I apologize that it's taken me so long to follow up on this subject from that original video a couple years ago. And I will leave a link to that podcast in the description box, so, to fill in any gaps from this current information, because I will purposely be making an effort to not repeat the same information that I shared before. So I hope you'll be willing to listen to the end for a more complete picture of the selection process that we all go through. And some of you will probably remember me mentioning being somewhat reluctant in sharing any information I'm not quite clear about. My personal code has always been to do no harm. So I want to make sure that anything I share will be for the enjoyment and benefit of the listener. And I assure you that all knowledge I pass on comes from a benevolent and loving heart. I also told you that if or when some of these memories and events that took place during the planning stages of this incarnation become more lucid, that I would then make another video to present that information. And I believe this is the time to do that. Oh, I'd like to begin with sharing something that I learned long ago, which is it's all about remembering who we are. We come here to remember who we are. It's the greatest work that we can do while here. And I'll talk more about that when I discuss the construction of the life plan. For most of my life, among friends and family that I spoke to, not many seemed to have any memories of their birth or who they were before coming into incarnation as a human. In fact, until less than 10 years ago, I had never heard the term born aware. The first person I heard use that phrase was Cynthia Sue Larson, a physicist and author of several books, including Quantum Jumps and Reality Shifts. Well, I was so excited to meet another person who had these memories. And now others are coming forward, writing books and making amazing videos. And I just want to take a moment here to remind everyone listening that what I share here with you today are my own personal memories. And some are very metaphysical, and yet others are almost more real than this life I'm now living in. And it seems like they just occurred days ago. In any case, if this feels good to you, keep it. And if it doesn't, you have my permission to toss it out. Nonetheless, I will always do my very best to relay each experience to you as accurately as I can. I also feel it's important to make the point that having these memories does not necessarily mean the person is more enlightened or knowing than the person with no memory whatsoever. It only means that this recognition was placed into their life plan for a reason that is specific to that individual. It has nothing to do with them being special or remarkable, because we all have these memories before we come into a human body. It's just that these souls have chosen that recall for a purpose, to be expressed at some future moment as higher motivation or intention that will lead them into a predetermined function that they have planned for that lifetime. And before our birth, depending completely upon our soul's preferences, we choose those specifics, whether to come in with no memory, with some memory, or anything in between. So just know that we will all awaken to who we are at a time when the desires of the human meet the desires of the higher self. And that potential is written into our soul's journey. When and how our memories return are simply features or ingredients of our soul and will at some point express as an awakening. Well, the first thing that I purposely left out of the previous video, because it would have made it way too long, was my memories of the realm I came from before, what I've always called the before world, the place I call home, and the reason that I left that realm. And these remain some of the clearest and most cherished memories I've been able to hold on to throughout this lifetime. This extra-dimensional realm, to the best of my knowledge and memory, exists outside of spatial dimensions and beyond any physical reality of the universe. And by extra-dimensional, I mean to say a location beyond that of space and time. Yet, not a vacuum as such, because it had a sort of substance, almost like floating in a liquid of, I almost want to say light, but it wasn't light. It was like a soft, grayish expanse, total comfort and love. I was aware of being pure energy, yet I could also feel myself as an impression of thought or a conception or idea within a field or a realm of some sort, like within my own space. And it wasn't a void, because it was alive with what I might call purpose or direction. Maybe better said, potential. When I remember this place, I always have within that memory a very distinct feeling, almost like a tucked in or enclosed comfort, like my essence was wrapped in an envelope of warm love. And not warm like temperature warm, warm like snug or cozy. And yet, truthfully, I'm not sure if I identified this sensation at that time or later as a part of that memory. Now, the more I learn about consciousness, the more I can recognize or define this place as a place of origin. Maybe not source itself, but possessing a womb-like quality. And I say this because there was a very slight movement within this protective membrane, like a soft pulsation. When I try to visualize it rather than feeling it, I sense a very slow transforming of colors and maybe even sound. Although I can't tell you why I say that. It's all just combined within the wholeness of that timeless moment. I've referred to this state as home, home to us all, because in that nothingness of forever, I was everything. Although I feel sure there's even a more lofty or exalted home, a place of inception. I suppose what you might call source or the absolute. Anyway, I was constantly aware of others around me, also floating in this vital field of awareness. And we were all drifting together as sort of a group. And I later discovered that these were the souls who were also answering the call to come and assist the earth during her dimensional transformation. And even as I drifted in this awareness, I knew I was not separate from anything in the universe. And yet I have to say here that I also felt very uninformed of what that was. Like a baby discovering its hand and fingers for the first time, seeing those moving objects at first like they're separate from self, from their sense of who and what they are, until soon when they realize they can make those hands do things like move and point. You know, as I'm speaking here, I'm beginning to think that maybe it's just too impossible to describe this place. Maybe I should just simply say it is. It simply is. It exists and yet doesn't simultaneously. Home, the beingness of all. Okay, now on to the first awareness of this advisory board, who I later learned to call the Council of Wise Ones, but probably has numerous other names. They were very real to me. What I mean is very memorable, like, hey, this is really happening. They immediately revealed to me that they were a guiding council who assisted souls in creating their life plan before they incarnate on Earth. And they also oversee the Akashic records. And interestingly, they explained that because each soul has its own reasons for incarnating, this will determine the guides that would be assigned to each individual soul. For example, if the soul was only interested in discovering what it would be like to become human, this would involve very different guidance than for the soul who wanted to face an entire life that would hold specific challenges. And then there are souls who have already experienced many physical lives and have ascended back into the higher realms, but have decided to come back to Earth, maybe to become a spiritual teacher and help others to accomplish that same journey. Then there are those who are coming to Earth as what we call starseeds, to bring their higher vibration to the planet as a means of uplifting humanity during the shift that we're all experiencing now. So each individual soul will receive assistance from those guides that are most skilled with that particular expertise. During this planning process, I was asked what I would most like to have in my life plan as what they referred to as my background to my human life. Well, I wasn't immediately sure what they meant until they explained that taking on a human life is a great opportunity for confronting those specific challenges that are unique to planet Earth. Well, I don't remember all the options they suggested, but I do know that I decided to select relationships. Since relationships are very different outside of third density because of telepathy, so nothing is ever hidden. It's all out in the open, and it's very different for humans in 3D. My guides added that if I was willing, we could attach one or more complications or difficulties to those relationships with the objective of overcoming or defeating those problems, bringing more opportunity for expansion. And this I remember clearly, that if I was able to conquer these 2 or 3 obstacles, the majority of the remainder of my life would be fairly free from any added distressing problems, and I could spend my time learning what it's like to be human. Well, that sounded good to me. And the other inducement that was offered was that I would retain much of these memories as a means of helping me to acclimate to a world that was completely unfamiliar to any previous experience that I'd ever had. As we scrolled through various potential problems or painful complications that we might want to add to these relationships, I settled on 2. First, I wanted to know what it would feel like. I don't know what I was thinking here. To be jealous or vengeful of another soul. And hopefully through that weakness, at least this is what I was thinking, to be able to experience forgiveness and eventually unconditional love. And second, to experience at least 1 or 2 shattering losses of central loved ones, which nearly all of us have within our life plans. Because where we come from, we know we never lose anyone. Well, the guides offered several situations to choose from, and I actually didn't remember the exact details of these choices until much later in my life, when I was actually experiencing them. And at that point, some of these memories came back. Well, the guides showed me that within this selection, there would be a chance of experiencing a devastating betrayal that had the potential for altering everything I had previously trusted in and could bring forth a deep emotional pain and could generate that state of jealousy that I wished to experience and understand. And this would help to reveal my deeper essence in either a positive way or a negative way in reactions. And with each of these details that were considered, the guides would either explain how those choices would affect my life. And in some cases, they would actually show me little visual clips of how that life would go if I made that choice. And this was the most fascinating part of this whole planning stage, to see myself as well as others as we would be in this upcoming life. It was amazing. Of course, there were many other decisions that needed to be written into the plan. So not all of these are clear to me. However, a few stand out that remain significant. One was during the time I was presented with choices of parents. I remember clearly, in one case, being shown a woman who could become my mother, but I immediately rejected her because she was very religious. I was shown that if I chose her, it would be very challenging for me to get past that religious programming of that lifetime. And this is something that I very much did not want to be forced into. So after seeing that, I remember making this point very clear. No religion. The guides helped me to choose the country and location of my birth. And this was chosen mostly for the earthly purpose that I would be coming in for. Yet, there would be challenges scripted into nearly every choice made. They don't make it easy on you. These are always put in so the souls can use their free will to decide how they will deal with each of these difficulties. Like, are you going to be a victim to this circumstance or rise above it? As I look over my life so far, I can see numerous things I definitely could have reacted better to. Others maybe okay. Now, some of these little details that we're asked to select might be seen by us now, after the fact, as a bit vain. And yet these are all very important to the contacts and encounters that the human will have. For example, when it was time to choose my body, I remember being very excited about having hair, like humans have. And what stands out for me in this memory is that I was shown several visuals of human girls and women with various shades and types of hair. Well, I was most drawn to what I now believe was probably an American Indian girl who had long dark braids that hung clear down her back. And I wanted that hair. Her hair was a shiny, nearly jet black color, and I thought it was beautiful. However, as we continued to go through the other selections of choosing parents and nationality and so on, I was told that my body would not have the genetics for that beautiful black hair. So I finally had to settle on dark brown hair. In this life, I grew my hair so long that it hung far down below my knees, and I often wore it in braids. In fact, I didn't get it cut short until I turned 30 years old. And I've never chosen to color my hair, yet now it's not as dark as it once was, but I'm hoping I can retain this natural color for much longer. Cross fingers. By the way, my grandmother had stunning red hair that was so long that it hung in one long braid all the way down onto the floor and extended out another foot. She once told me that a human's hair can act as a receiver to gaining higher knowledge. And I've since heard something similar from the Pleiadians, who say that our hair is an antenna to receiving telepathic transmissions. Okay, I digress. Where was I? Oh, yeah. And I did discover that the guides don't look at these physical preferences as vain at all. And in fact, they're considered some of the most consequential selections within the life plan, because they often are catalysts to those prime encounters the person will come in contact with during the human incarnation, like attraction to the opposite sex and so on. With these physical options, the basic job of the guides is just to make sure that these body preferences are all advantageous to the soul's purpose. And if they're not, they will advise against those selections. Okay. Oh, yeah. Now this is a little hard to describe, but the guides also assign a color to each soul for their entrance into a human body. This color frequency must align to the environment that the incoming baby or the walk-in soul will be arriving into. They explained that my color would be a blue-green color for the first formative years and would alter as the soul gained knowledge and experience until or through ascension or death. Oh, yeah. And by the way, it's the oddest thing. My eyes have always been hazel brown for this entire lifetime. But about 12 years ago, they began to take on a golden color. Then, about 3 years ago, they turned green and are now completely a deep green color. And I've talked to other starseeds who have also had this exact experience of their eyes changing color. And usually they change to green. Oh, yeah. And I want to say here that I know a lot of us have wondered why some people remember these things and others don't. And this should help to clarify that. We were asked to consider during this selection process the insertion of several positions within the life of that human where situations and events would come together that would bring a potential for that soul to wake up and remember who they are. These conditions are set into favorable occasions where certain elements can come together to trigger the return of those memories. However, it's always up to the person's free will whether they decide to accept those circumstances or not. A further memory that came clearer only after my son was talking about a potential past life that he had had, and it triggered the memory. Well, a decision I had to make at this stage was intelligence. Like most, I suppose, I really wanted to have a high intellect. And I don't know if this was all towards some sort of a desire for self-esteem or what. But the most intriguing part of this process of choosing intelligence is how this selection is finalized. It turns out that there are several elements within that decision, and we actually end up choosing the brain capacity of our human body. It was explained that as a receiver and filter, the brain can be programmed in a number of ways. For example, if the life plan involved the soul having a career as perhaps a scientist or maybe a neurologist, there would be certain neuronal areas in the brain that would be more dominant, more activated than others. But if the chosen path was to involve the soul being maybe very intuitive or psychic, other neuronal areas would be activated. And frankly, this was one of the variables that led me to choose the parents that I did, who were both brilliant scientific minds. Yet, my mother was also very clairvoyant and intuitive. In fact, both she and her mother, my grandmother, were ET contactees. Another thing I might add here is that at one point before awakening into my human body, I remember being immersed into a liquid, which for some reason was very frightening to me, even though I was able to breathe under this water or whatever the liquid was. And I will explain more about what this was in a following video. and how this contributed to a lifelong fear of being drowned underwater. Okay, now the final decision of this planning stage was to choose several potential exit points, exit windows, where the soul or consciousness of the human would be able to withdraw from the body, as in die, and go back home. Now, there's an entire video on this channel about exit points, and I will link that video too. So, wow. Stay tuned for part 2 of this topic, which will add to the original exit points video and focus on the various options that a soul has to select from for both the arrival into and withdrawal from the human body, which from my perspective is very helpful in learning how to maneuver through those unexpected hardships that come along in life. Having this information can help us to understand why those supposed misfortunes happen. And instead of feeling the victim, we can at least begin to glimpse the gift within. And for those of you who are still with me at this point, thank you so much for staying the course. And I really look forward to seeing you again very soon. My love goes out to you all. Bye-bye.